how else would you have a perfect understanding of how this might, be potentially operating?
He was basically saying, I don't work that well. Basically, he was saying there's these networks of satanic trafficking, right?
I'll tell you right now, man, it's so crazy what he says about the founders.
I looked him up. I was hoping he was still alive, and I saw some of his videos. I'm like, wow, this guy's like
Ted. Yeah,
he's also, I think he's the one that found the tunnels on a separate
That's
case.
Exactly what he did, yeah. So he presented that.
What's the case?
The McMartin preschool.
Yeah, people don't know. I don't know the details behind this one again, but there was alleged of hundreds of kids were molested there.
Absolutely, and it wasn't just
around
McMartin.
60, I think.
They all said they were brought to these like tunnels, but there's no tunnel
systems.
They explained what were in them, the satanic rituals, and these kids are crazy, manipulated. Years later, he dug up and found 45-foot long tunnels, giant. They didn't find them all even, but these massive tunnels.
Oh yeah,
had pentagrams drawn on them.
Oh yeah,
hundreds of bones of animals. This is like real shit.
So Ray Buckey, the key perpetrator in that case, right, the McMartin preschool. It turns out you have Will Bynum, who's this investigator, right, and I think it was the Manhattan or Hermosa police department at the time, and he was effectively they murdered him and claimed it was a suicide because he was actually the day before he was going to testify and actually discuss the details of what he discovered at the McMartin site, which was dead rabbit carcasses at one of the filled in. So they had discovered that there was foreign soil that had filled in the tunnel system.
They wanted to hide it after it got raided. Yeah,
exactly. And so that alone revealed the fact that there was a tunnel system perfectly in place. Which, by the way, the individual who ordered basically, I forget the name of the individual just offhand that actually ordered the construction of the McMartin preschool, but he had actually built that tunnel system and had it dug in before they ever actually created.
Like pre-planned.
Yes,
because it just sounds so crazy. The kids like, oh, we're getting brought through tunnels, sometimes flying places, doing satanic rituals. People are like, oh, that's just crazy.
Right.
But then they found the tunnels.
Yes, they did.
There was a lot. I don't know the number. There was a lot of kids saying it.
At the time, though, like as you mentioned, I believe there was some document that came out. You correct me if I'm wrong. That essentially implied, we didn't find, essentially didn't mention the tunnels, and it wasn't until later that, much later, after it already got written off as Satanic Panic. A lot of people always like to point to how none of these, these did start to go to trial, and they all just fell through one by one until there was no one applying. But you got to think the same thing, from a legal standpoint, if you're think about the chances of actually going through with prosecution with a child. Think about it, as twisted as it may be, from the ultimate perspective. If you are trying to tear down the credibility of a child, not too hard to do. But it's also the go ahead.
The False Memory Syndrome Foundation. They instantly infiltrated. So all these MK Ultra,
Jolly West probably involved in this.
Exactly. They infiltrate, the McMartin case. And they legitimately decide that they're going to undermine the credibility of the child victims.
I think it might have been hundreds, even. It was so many.
Jordan Peterson had on Michael Aquino's wife at some point, didn't he?
Oh God, that's just terrible.
Yeah, that's a fun one to go look back. He completely going with the Satanic Panic narrative in that little bit. I never watched it entirely, but that's exactly what that is.
It's easy for it just to sound crazy. Yeah. It just sounds so insane when you hear this stuff. But then they find the tunnels. They have the, people constantly dying, and then all the stories are the same. Tons of these cases always mention tunnels. Almost every case, not on everything, but a lot of times the kids say, "Oh, we were brought through underground tunnels." That just sounds so insane. But then, here are some tunnels.
I think it was 60 children they said from McMartin. I think somewhere in the realm of that. That claimed.
It was a lot. I know
and
that.
One of which I think claimed that a Mikey. Michael Aquino, and I believe they even described his inside.
Here we go.
He was the guy who was tied in with intelligence. The church is set, right? He's tied in with all these cases. It seems like
this is the Presidio connection, right? Which ties in the West Point scandal. Which again, Michael Aquino, it shouldn't go without being said as far as. He has military intelligence connections, and there's very much an overlapping thread that you can tie in.
NATO connections, as we mentioned
exactly.
earlier.
And by the way, he's going to the Belgium castle where they're holding the pink ballets for Marc Dutroux, the victims of Marc Dutroux. Yeah, man.
He's right there.
Yep. And by the way,
this is the case where it's 100% proven the kids were tortured to death,
And two of the victims in the Marc Dutroux case went to an event the night of their abduction where they were hypnotized live in front of an entire crowd.
No way.
I swear. And as far as that's concerned, it to me it's proof positive that because that was the night they were abducted. Yes, man.
Yeah, so it's like they said stuff you don't want to believe, but when you start seeing just too many connections, it's
absurd. And beyond that, it becomes undeniable at a certain point, and that's where you find yourself in an extraordinary position where you have to kind of actually grapple with the fact that this is the power paradigm that we're witnessing play out in front of
it's
our
true.
own eyes.
You don't want to talk about it because it's so dark and like, you sound crazy, but then you start seeing all the points and you're like, something's clearly there.
I think True Detective probably is one of the greatest jobs. I bring this up frequently to like
Season
kind of
1 was the
highlight
best,
this.
yeah.
Season 1, highlight this concept. It's like one near the end, kind of the penultimate of all. He says at one point, he's like, essentially, I refuse to look away again. And this is as they're watching one of the child snuff films in this, and it's like. And he's like, did you watch this? And he's like, I won't look away again, because he had dropped the ball about this case
so
years
beautiful.
prior, and because due to his inattentiveness, and he recognized this, and he says, I will not look away again. So he watches the snuff film and said, I had to watch for details, and I watch this over and over again because I will not look away again. I will not let this be on my conscience.
That's
let
what
this
I
happen.
was-
watch that.
And that was kind of the theme of that whole season, in my opinion, because then you have Marty, the other
watch
cop.
that.
His whole thing was he's inattentive.